presented by Policy Bazaar.
CNBC TV 80, the Policy Bazaar Insurance Show.
It is that time of the year when you're all ready to take that international trip which you've planned and have been saving up for all year long. But have you planned your trip well? Flight tickets booked, hotel reservations done, visa arrangements done, sightseeing booked, forex arranged. But what about your travel insurance? Well, if you've already purchased a travel insurance policy or are about to, then today's episode of the Policy Bazaar Insurance Show is for you. We're joined by Ashish Sethi, President and Head SPU and Travel at Bajaj Allianz General Insurance, and Anand Singhi, Chief Retail and Government Business at ICICI Lombard, to answer all your doubts on how you can plan a stress-free travel with a comprehensive travel insurance plan. Thank you, gentlemen, for taking the time out and speaking to us and sharing your wisdom on this very, very important topic, and more importantly, at such a relevant time. Ashish, first question to you. To speak about travel insurance, largely it is considered as the last priority and just a checkpoint when it comes to getting your visas. How big of a mistake or an error can that prove to be? And second, what defines a comprehensive travel insurance plan?
Well, firstly, Yash, it's a pleasure to be here and thank you for having us. And like you said, there's no better time as of now to look at travel insurance, because we are at the cusp of or at the annual of the travel insurance season. And with most tickets being done and hotels being booked and itineraries being chalked out, ever so often people forget to do the most important thing, is buy insurance. That is the one aspect that can turn the entire travel on its head. And it's extremely important to ensure that we have looked at it in its minutest detail, because having a cover may not cover what you requisitely require to be covered. So there is no comprehensive insurance. There is no comprehensive insurance plan. It's a modularity plan. So depending on the kind of travel that you're doing, you need to build and stack up that plan. So just to sort of culminate it, you look at your travel in the sense of ensuring you look at the best hotel, you book the best airline, you book the best seat, you even go to the details of ensuring that you book the best plan in terms of your food. But ever so often, people don't look at the insurance with the minutest eye. And that's what I would request people to look at.
Okay. Anand, to you, if I could pass on the same question, but little differently, how big of a mistake can it prove to be if you don't have a good travel insurance plan while you're traveling abroad? What are those minute things, the smaller things, the bigger things that one should be watchful of while buying a travel insurance plan?
There was a point in time when travel insurance was primarily being bought for visa requirements, because a lot of embassies would kind of really want to have the travel insurance so that your visa is processed properly. But over the years, people have realized that travel insurance in itself serves a very significant purpose. If you look at a country, right, there are predominantly almost like more than 3.3 crore people traveling internationally every single year. And when we see what are the categories of traveler, we kind of really have them in 4 cohorts. The ones to begin with are the early travelers who would possibly be traveling for the first or second time in their life. Then you have more frequent travelers, which are like zipping around multiple times in a particular year across the globe. In that cohort, now there's a new section which is getting developed, which is the modern travelers, which are the ones which are seeking more fun also while they're traveling. So for like what Ashish mentioned, people who love doing adventure sports, so on and so forth.
Correct.
And then there is a very large category which gets unserved, is the senior citizen travelers. What is the most relevant thing they should kind of really purchase in their travel insurance plan is going to be the defining factor. So for example, if there is somebody who is traveling multiple times during the year, he might prefer to go in for a multi-trip travel insurance policy.
Correct.
While if there is a modern traveler who loves to kind of really take a car on self-ride or kind of really do some bit of adventure activities, he or she would need to plan for the covers accordingly. So what our recommendation obviously is identify what you want to do during your travel and then select the necessary covers so that you are completely and comprehensively covered.
Ashish, policies have evolved. The purpose which they serve has evolved. But the thinking largely even today in the minds of policyholders is that a travel insurance policy, the limited role is that if there is a medical emergency, only in that case is when a travel insurance policy comes to use. But it does so many things, right? I was just reading about a few things: flight cancellations, baggage theft, and so many more things which are associated with your travel. If a person's understood the roles, the multi-dimensional role which a policy can cover, does he have to ask these additional roles as riders to the base policy, or do standard policies also come with these different roles that a travel insurance can play?
Yash, I'll answer that question, but before that, it's important to understand that everything being said and done, the penetration of travel insurance in this country is just 30%. So there's 70% of travelers who are not alluding to travel insurance. That itself is a massive risk when they step out. So that's at a 30,000 feet level. Now, if you were to sort of granularize that for the people who are buying insurance, say the 30% of the people who are buying insurance, there's a lot of modularity to the products. So there is a base cover, but with innovation and digitalization, there's a lot more that a person can look at when he's traveling. For example, there's a trip curtailment, there's a car hire. So there are massive number of add-ons. So we, for example, have 42 add-ons, and those 42 add-ons cover everything. So even from a senior citizen cover, for even waiver of sublimits in terms of a senior citizen cover, you even have your trip curtailment, like I said earlier on, you have a flight delays, you have your overbooking cancellations, you have a lounge facility being provided if you take that add-on cover. So there's no end to the covers that you like to have. But having said that, it's important that you look at the basic covers, depending on the kind of travel you're going to be looking at.
People who generally are, going for business travels and are frequent flyers, do they get any kind of policy which covers them not for one individual travel, but for certain number of years, which could be termed as long term? Second thing, if yes, what are the advantages of buying a long-term policy versus buying a policy every time I travel for business or for a frequent visit that I'm planning to make?
Most insurance companies have something called an annual multi-trip travel insurance.
Okay.
And that basically covers you for the number of trips that you would do. You don't have to go and buy one every time you are traveling abroad. A, it's expensive to buy it every time you go, vis-a-vis buying the annual multi-trip policy. B, in some instances, you may just forget to buy it, and then you're at risk unknowingly. So that covers you for that unknown risk also. Now, on the multi-trip, there are some technical aspects that one needs to consider. You should cover for all your gadgets because they're important to you during your business travel. B, most policies have a cover of up to 60 days in a particular city. And that's to be known, because if you're going to exceed 60 days, you need to buy a temporary extension policy, right? And there are some products, without naming insurance companies, where you have, extension of cover up to 180 days. So those elements you need to keep in mind in terms of the business travel policies. Having said that, like I mentioned earlier, if you look at the other aspects of travel insurance, those also get covered in the multi-trip policy.
Okay.
Important is to look at the duration, the frequency, and which part of the world you're traveling to, and ensure that you have the adequate cover for those regions.
But these are just for 1 year purpose? I mean, multiple trips
Yes.
during 1 year?
During 1 year.
You don't have anything beyond 1 year?
Yeah.
Right now in the industry, 2 years, 3 years,
Yeah.
are there those options are also available?
They are on the annual, but right now it's an annual multi-trip policy.
Okay.
But if I, sorry, just
sure,
to add
sure.
across to what Ashish mentioned, there is another bit of innovation which is taken in the market. During the multi-trip policies, you could also choose the number of days for which you would typically want to have the policy being designed.
Okay.
So for an example, you say that during the annual multi-trip policy, I would want myself to be insured for 90 days, right? And in case for whatever reason you could not complete your 90 days, there are provisions which are being now kind of built across where you could carry forward the number on expired days of you not using the insurance policy.
It's pay as you use.
So it's pay as you use. I think so that's one interesting innovation which is taking shape.
Anand, I want to focus a little bit on a different section of population as well. Besides education, besides travel, there are a lot of Indians who are traveling maybe for a much longer time to another country, be it in search of employment or any other reason, right? If, let's say, a particular period has been thought through by which the person expects to get a job, if that does not happen, what should he do? How should he have a health insurance policy rather in any other country in that sense?
What's the real purpose of a travel insurance policy? It's fundamentally designed for people who are traveling for business purpose, for let's say exploration travel sort of purpose, and then kind of really want to come back to the country. Is it designed to take care of people who are moving to another country for residency purpose? The answer is no.
Okay.
But yes, there is time period through which you can kind of really get your residency kind of fixated in that particular set of country. So what typically the travel insurance policies would do, it would cover you for 30 to 90 days. At times, there are few setups at which you can extend it to 120 days. But besides that, if the condition or if the core requirement is to kind of really have a policy which takes care of your residency in that particular country, we would urge our viewers and travelers to kind of really look out for an appropriate travel insurance cover in the country where they want to reside, look at various scenarios, conditions, companies, and then kind of choose the best possible cover.
That's a very important point. But on that note, it's time for us to take a very, very short break. The journey towards understanding travel insurance continues on the other side of this very small break.
CNBC TV 80, the Policy Bazaar Insurance Show.
Welcome back to the Policy Bazaar Insurance Show. We continue our discussion on a very interesting topic, role of a comprehensive travel insurance plan for a stress-free travel. And Anand, to start the segment with you, both of you have been talking so much about, the emergence of adventure activities during every travel now. Possibly, even if the sole purpose is not adventure, there is some element of adventure or activities related to adventure in every sort of international vacation travel or leisure travel which you make. While buying a travel insurance plan, does one have to be mindful of the fact that you do let the insurance company know that this could be a part of my itinerary in whatever extent? And if yes, is there sort of any additional premium that you have to pay? Or does this now, because it's so prevalent, comes with the base policy that you get?
While the person is traveling abroad, I think one should be significantly mindful about what all activities he would love to do in the country, in the new set of country which he's traveling. If there are activities which are already planned in context to adventure spots, so for example, if you want to really go for a great hike, do some bit of trekking, or indulge into water sports and so on and so forth, we would request our customers to kind of really declare that and also kind of buy a rider or a plan which kind of really covers the particular individual for these set of activities.
Ashish, one question to you. As we also spoke about the fact that the cost of getting medical attention, be it for a longer time or relatively shorter time, like an OPD cover, is still very high in a lot of geographies otherwise. How does one go about looking at that side of travel insurance if there is, let's say, the requirement to get some shorter medical attention? And if that claim is taken, how does it impact your sum assured or the travel cover for the balance part of your trip once that has been taken care of?
At the core of it, it is a health insurance when you're traveling abroad, which entails a sum insured. Hypothetically, the sum insured is $100,000. And say there's an OPD expense of $5,000 with a deductible, right? Whatever that deductible may be. If there is a utilization of that OPD gets reduced from your total sum insured.
Okay.
So for the balance tenure of your trip or visit, you would have a $95,000 cover. So that's the way it operates. It doesn't operate in silos. It's one cover, one sum insured, being utilized by two elements, which is OPD and IPD.
Anand, one question to you, and this is a serious problem as I look through it. Most of us, when we travel, internationally, largely the trips are booked by a travel agent, right? While, giving you the requirements that you would need for your visa, there has never been a case, at least with me, that the travel agent is asked what are the pre-existing ailments or diseases that you have for the purpose of that travel insurance policy which he is going to issue to you. Is there a big risk when it comes to claims if anything happens with respect to and around those diseases that they already have?
Absolutely. So again, Yash, Ashish had mentioned a very critical point, stating that only 30-35% of the total travelers in our country who are going out are taking us or seeking a travel insurance policy.
Hmm.
One of the reason, while not in totality, but one of the biggest reason why people there was significant amount of under insurance or not being insured was because of the fact that when people had PD, they had no option because most of the insurance companies were not ready to give covers for people who were kind of covering with getting had PD with them.
Correct.
And essentially, what happened was disclosures around this fact was significantly reduced. What most of the companies now have done is they have great disclosure forms where the customers or the viewers, I think, who's traveling, they can kind of disclose that they have got a pre-existing disease. They can communicate very categorically what is the pre-existing disease, and the insurance companies would take a note of it and then kind of stitch in the covers, which takes care of you even if you have a pre-existing disease and if you're traveling outside the state of country. So from my own as well as the organization perspective, we would very strongly urge that the travelers should disclose very, very categorically if they have a pre-existing disease.
Ashish, if I could ask you another question. With travel insurance, how does one understand that this is the right kind of cover that I have to carry in case of any emergency?
Well, there are multiple aspects that are sort of looked at when you derive a sum insured. But it's important to leave it to the experts. Let the experts derive it for you. You need to trust in those experts. Ever so often, one wants to cut down on the premium and therefore you look at cutting down the sum insured. If you're traveling to the US where, medical expenses are exorbitant, like I said earlier, if you're going to take a $100,000 cover or $200,000 cover, it's going to be significantly insufficient if there's a severity of a sort of disease that emanates over there. Number two, it's important to look at where you're traveling and what you're doing. So you evaluate that, but leave it to the experts. The experts will sort of derive the right sum insured for you. Trust in those experts and buy it.
Anand, to speak about the claims process in the situation of a medical emergency, how does it flow through when you're getting admitted to a hospital overseas? Do you get admitted and let the hospital, intimate the insurer back in India and handle the claims process? Or do you or your family members or your friends have to do the needful of letting the insurer in India know that there has been an admission and this needs to be coordinated with the hospital?
It all depends on the situation out there. If you are into a position where you could intimate to the insurance company, it's always the best because in that particular scenario, the cashless benefits can be extended to the travelers. And the insurance company would liaise across with the hospitals or the network providers in the particular country and then ensure that you have a smooth process which kind of really is taken care of at the back end. In scenarios and in cases where the travelers have not been able to intimate to the insurance companies and they paid the medical treatment cost out of their own set of pockets, then they could kind of really intimate to the insurance companies when they come back to the country, ensure that the necessary documents are provided. There are some bit of formalities around there where the insurers might have to reach out to the hospitals to authenticate the documents which are being provided across, and it might lead to a little bit of delay. So the best case scenario is, while there is option of reimbursement which is always available, is to intimate the insurance company by self or any of your family members that there is a medical emergency and there is a treatment which is required in that particular state of country, and the insurance company would completely license this out.
Makes sense. Before we conclude this episode, I would want to sort of get your views on two individual topics one by one. To start with you, Ashish, the first one, and that section of the population, if you're traveling with senior citizens or infants, at the same time, both sides, the risks would be very different. If the risks are different, of course, the sum assured or the cover would be different.
Yeah, first, let's just define what is a senior citizen, what is a child cover, what are the age limits for that. So for senior citizens, 60 and above.
Okay.
And for children, it is up to 21, right? That being said, for the senior citizen cover, like we discussed earlier, it's important to divulge all the pre-existing diseases because your cover would be determined by the pre-existing diseases that you have, right? That's point number one. Point number two is important to ensure that the senior citizen has the information to support the underwriting for that cover proactively given to the underwriters. So that is determined in full format. For children, I think it's important to look at the adventure sports cover because ever so often it's the children who decide to sort of indulge into sporting activities like hang gliding or water surfing and so on, and scuba diving. and it's important to have that cover. So I think notwithstanding these two, most of the add-ons would cover everything else.
Okay. To you, Anand, a different section, but I want to focus a little on students. Going in, a different country to pursue your higher education, the course could be a year long, 2 years, 3 years. In that case, is it advisable or for him to buy an insurance policy from an insurer of that country? Or can he sort of rely on the health insurance policy which he has back here in India, as I said, for a period of 1 year, 2 years, 3 years?
Most of the universities would seek an insurance policy out of India, right? And that's something which is then provided to the students for the tenure of the period for which you are going to be studying in a different set of country. And it comprehensively covers you for different kind of scenarios. For students specifically, there are add-ons which are available. We would always advise that the students who are traveling out of the country to check with the universities in case of whether the insurance company in India should provide the policy, or they have a rule where they have to buy a local health insurance policy.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here today on CNBC TV 18 and sparing the time for this comprehensive discussion. But with that, we come to an end to this special episode of the Policy Bazaar Insurance Show. Remember the key takeaways from today's discussion. Know the geography, know the place where you're traveling and what kind of cover, travel insurance cover it would require. Know the activities that you're indulging in, and do ask the insurer, to cover those activities or your requirements. And most importantly, make sure that you disclose all your pre-existing diseases in advance so that at the time of seeking a claim, there is no issue. But with that, we come to an end to this episode. We'll meet you soon next week with a new episode with another interesting topic. Till then, stay safe, stay insured.
CNBC TV 18, the Policy Bazaar Insurance Show.
Presented by Policy Bazaar.